IP addresses are always referred to as either a static IP address or a dynamic IP address. And in this video, I want to explain what that means so that you'll be able to answer questions correctly on the A+ exam. And this is some information, actually all of this TCP/IP information is something you will use on a daily basis out there working as a tech in the current IT environment. Now, every computer on the network must be uniquely addressed. Okay, we've already talked about that in previous videos. That is what TCP/IP and IP addressing does for us. Now, everybody has to have a unique IP address. They have to have a subnet mask and a default gateway on every device that's going to be utilized or communicated with on the network. That means we have to assign IP addresses to all these devices, and there are two methods that we have for taking care of IP address assignment. The first one is static and the second is dynamic, hence the name of our video, right? So let's talk first about static. Now, static IP addressing is where the IP address information is manually assigned. We're going to use some software in the Windows environment or whatever environment, and we're just going to go in and manually type in an IP address for that machine. We'll put in an IP address, a subnet mask, and a default gateway. Now, obviously, if we're going to use static addresses and we're going to put them in, we're going to have to take a lot of care to make sure that we use unique addresses, properly input the subnet mask, and put the proper default gateway address in there, or we're going to have problems communicating on the network. Now, this IP address information for this particular device or machine will never change until somebody goes in there and changes it. So once I set a static IP address, I manually assign it an address, it will always have that address until I go in and manually change it. Now, we usually do this for things like servers, routers, printers, any kind of network service device that we want the IP address to always stay the same so we can always get there and find it. Now, do keep in mind that a lot of people will consider this at a certain level a security issue, because if the IP address always stays the same, then there's all kinds of tricks out there that the 13-year-olds can use to kind of sneak up on that IP address and find it. And once they penetrate that and they find that IP address, it always stays that way, and they can then use that as a basis for launching attacks and stuff. Still, you're going to see in most networks, servers, routers, all kinds of network devices have static IP addresses. Now, a dynamic IP address is just the opposite. It's where the IP address information is assigned automatically. When you start the computer up, it contacts a DHCP server, or maybe a router on the network is running the DHCP service. Now, DHCP stands for Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. It exists to automatically assign IP addresses, subnet masks, and default gateways to a machine. Now, what's happening when we turn the machine on, it sends out a little broadcast message saying, hey, I'm looking for a DHCP server. A DHCP server somewhere on the network sees that and responds back, hey, I'm a DHCP server, do you want an IP address? And there's this little exchange of information, acknowledgments, and so forth. And at the end of this whole ordeal, the client machine that got turned on gets an IP address, subnet mask, and a default gateway, and even some other information, and it's automatically assigned. Now, that IP address is valid for a limited amount of time, usually about 3 days, and the IP address is automatically renewed by the DHCP service. However, the new address may be different from the one it had. So that's the reason, if I'm going to depend on IP address to communicate with somebody, and I always want the same address to be there. So dynamic works for some devices, doesn't work too well for others. Now, I'm going to show you, I'm just going to jump out to the desktop here and show you how you can set the IP address. If you can see the network icon on your desktop is the best way to do this. Just right click on that and go to properties, and then when you get in there, just go to adapter settings, okay, and then I'm just going to right click on my Ethernet adapter right here, go into properties, and then I will scroll down and notice TCP/IP, or Internet Protocol version 4. So I will choose that, click properties, And notice right now this machine is set to obtain an IP address automatically. And that means it has an IP address that was assigned by a DHCP server. If I want to do a static IP address, I click this, and now I can just type in, right, an IP address. 192.168.3.54, right? Then I got to go put in a subnet mask and so forth. But I got to make sure that this is truly unique on the network, okay? So I'm going to pull this out, and we'll just go back to obtain. Actually, I'm going to cancel anyway and get out of that. But that's how you would set that up to be a static IP address. So that's the difference between static or dynamic. Just make sure you watch for these issues on the exam. And again, this is something you'll deal with day in and day out working as a PC tech.